What is the best type of chicken feed? G'day there, I'm Dana from Fantail Valley Homestead, and I've had a few people ask me what is the best type of chicken feed that we can feed our chickens. So today I'm going to run through the most common types of chicken feed that you can get and which one I think is actually the best that you can feed them. Chickens need a different variety of protein content in their feed depending on how old they are. Growing chickens, or also meat chickens all the way through because they're growing so fast, need a protein content of around 20 to 22%, which is quite high and difficult to get without a well formulated feed. Once your chickens are 7 weeks, you can drop their protein content down to closer to 14, 15, 16%, because they're not growing as quickly anymore, but they're not also needing the extra protein to be making eggs. Once your chickens have reached 18 to 20 weeks, or their point of lay and about ready to lay, so for heritage breeds this might not be until they're closer to 6 months old. At that stage you're wanting to be feeding them something between 15 to 18% protein. Now if this is too hard to remember, what you can do, one easy option, just buy the chick starter, and then when you run out move on to a grower feed, and then when you finish that bag move on to a laying chicken feed. Alternatively, you can split the difference and just feed a laying feed level of protein all the way through. Higher protein meals do cost more, which is why you tend to drop down in that middle period and use lower protein feed, because the chicks aren't needing it the same and it does cost that little bit more. The guy we get our mash from it's a free range layer mash, and it is 18% protein, and we feed it all the way through with no problems whatsoever. The most common options for feeding your chickens are crumble, mash, pellets, a powdery mash. The other option of course is to mix your own. This is chicken crumble, and this is the chick starter that we get. You can also get it for laying chickens. And I think basically what they do is they make a really fine powder and then they reconstitute it kind of like your breakfast cereal, and it's a perfect size for baby chicks to eat. This one is a very fine powdery mash, and this is what is sold as layers mash. Our chickens straight up do not like eating it, and could you imagine eating dry powder like this? So if you're buying this stuff, the best thing you can do with it is to make a wet mash with it, and to add some water. In the winter you can add some boiling water and let it cool down, and add enough that it's kind of a bit sloppy, more like an oatmeal or a porridge. Our chickens will only eat this in this state if they're really hungry. The next most common option are these pellets. Look, my hands are all wet and fluffy. These pellets are made from the really dry stuff, so they're constituted same product, but just in pelletized form. The chickens seem to enjoy these better than the dry powder. If you want to ferment your feed, you can ferment these. These will break down if you add some water to them and leave them overnight. They'll break down pretty easily. But the chickens prefer to eat these. They're more like eating a cookie or something like that rather than a mouthful of dry flour. This particular batch is stuff that we buy that has been made locally by a local farmer, and he deliberately crushes it quite chunky, and you can see it's got little pieces of corn, it's got, usually you can see the peas, there's bits of peas in there, and obviously some whole grains that are being crushed up as well as you can see the finer mix in there. There's also some mineral mix in there as well with it. Our chickens love eating this stuff. Out of all the options, this is their favourite to eat. However, it is a little bit too big for baby chicks to eat. If the mash that you have is too chunky for baby chicks and you don't have any crumble on hand, you can do what we've done in the past and simply take some of the chunkier grain or even pellets that you've got and whiz them up in some sort of food processor or blender, and then it will give you a nice fine crumble that you can use. This is a much better consistency. If you want to get the most out of the mash that you are feeding your chickens, fermenting them is a great way of getting your chickens to eat less and get more nutrients from the feed they're having. And fermenting their food is really easy. All you need to do is put it in a bucket, top it up with water, Usually we allow a good inch or so of extra water on the top because you'll be amazed at how much that mash drinks. And if you've got that really fine powdery gross mash, give it a really good stir because it's quite hydrophobic and will leave a lot of dry powder at the bottom. So give it a really good stir, and then all you need to do is cover it and sit it somewhere for 2 to 3 days. We currently aren't fermenting our feed because it just got too logistically difficult with multiple hen houses, but we did used to do it, and we just had 2 big bins on the go that held a whole sack of grain, and then we would fill it up with water and leave it to soak for a couple of days while we used the other one, and we just rotated them through like that. The upside to fermenting your feed, other than the fact they do eat about 1/3 less, is it makes the nutrients a lot more readily available. The bacteria and the yeast start to break down the protective coating on the grain and start to metabolize those nutrients, making them much more bioavailable for your chickens. If you can't get a big chunky mash grain like this anywhere near you, there are ways of making your own, and Garden Betty, I have no association with this website whatsoever, but they have a wonderful free calculator where you can put the different parts of what you have available to you into, and it will tell you, 1, how much it's going to cost you, and 2, what kind of protein level you have available. So I will put a link to that calculator down below for you. I hope you found that video helpful. If you have, check out the rest of the videos we have about raising chickens, and I'll see you in the next one.